program is part of the Scene Project's podcast network. The Scene Project features interviews with independent musicians, comedians, and artists from across the Midwest. Become part of our community and support local art wherever you are. Well, welcome into this episode of the Get Better Together Project. I am your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today is my very special guest, Barby Ingle. Barby, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you, Bubba. Glad to be here with you and everybody else.
Yeah, well, you have quite the inspiring story. You've been through a lot, and we're going to cover quite a bit of it today, but I'd like you to take us back and kind of share with us some of your backstory, and then we're obviously going to pick it up with a lot of exciting stuff that you're working on now. So the floor is yours, Barby.
Thank you so much. I have had quite a story, and I was living my best life. I graduated college after being told in first grade that I had a learning disability and that I would never even graduate high school. I ended up going all the way through college in 4 years and really finding ways to push through, learning that you don't have to stick with plan A, that you can go all the way to plan Z, but whatever it takes to get the thing accomplished in your life is the important thing to do, as long as it's within the law and helping you move forward through life. So I kept going and I pushed through with my learning disability. I learned the resources and tools, graduated college. A week later, I started my own cheerleading and dance training company. And then the next year, I was asked to be the head coach at Washington State University and put their whole spirit program together, dance team, cheerleaders, mascot, pep team, and went from there. I was living my best life. And one day out of the blue, I was in a minor car accident that led to a rare disease forming in my body. And we actually know now a lot more scientifically about it. But at that time, it just devastated my life. And I went from being on top of the world with everything to losing it all and having nothing, and had to rebuild a life from there.
Right. And we didn't cover it in the discovery call. So it was the accident that was kind of the catalyst then to the health problems that ensued.
Yes. And so with my rare disease, it's called algo-neurodystrophy. Algo is pain. It's burning fire pain. Neuro is your neurological system, and dystrophy is loss of muscle and bone. And it gets triggered by a priming incident. And my 8-second car accident triggered the disease to start attacking me as an adult. My younger brother has the same rare disease, and his was triggered as a child. Although it does affect men and women a little bit differently, they do relate it back to military, and not that I served or my brother served, but my father served during Vietnam. And a lot of military people actually end up with this same rare disease.
Yeah. And that's something we covered in our call. And, you know, I know that a lot of research has been doing with this, obviously working with the government, especially when it seems like they are at fault. I'm sure that's not easy in and of itself to get the proper research done in those areas. Is there any inclination about what it is that is causing the disorder to not just affect our veterans, but the offspring of our veterans?
Yes, they are going through studies now, but how much can you rely on? Like you said, if it's coming from something that's happening to our military, and it was first discovered during the Civil War, but just recent studies show 54% of our veterans coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq who were injured during service are developing the same rare disease. And it's got a definite connection to our military. They are looking at genes that are involved and related. But in my case, my older brother is totally healthy. He was born prior to my father serving in the military. And then my younger brother and I are after. and we both have this disease, and many of the people that we're connected to and work with, and the research that is coming out shows that there is this connection. They've pinpointed a few of the genes that are connected, but they don't know the mechanism that made those genes change going into the situation that we're in. So it's got a lot more research to go, but the research that is currently available is showing that there is a connection.
Well, and I think when you had mentioned your father and Vietnam, obviously there was a lot of chemical warfare during that time, and that's where my brain had initially
Yes.
went to. But you
Yeah,
mentioned
Agent
today
Orange.
that this goes to back to the Civil War,
Right.
where we're talking the 1800s now. Well, a
Yeah,
lot of these chemicals, were not in use then. So is it maybe something that's neurological from the theater of war that could be a cause, and not something from the outside, but actually from the inside?
possibly. Or there's many different. We know of Agent Orange. It's gotten the most publicity, but there was all kinds of agents that have been used and um, employed in. And when our military go in, it could be something that's here in America when they go into boot camp. It could be something that they're exposed to there, not necessarily in battle in another country, but something that is happening during boot camp for our military. So there's a lot more research to be done, but like I said, it does relate back to the military, and uh, maybe a lot of people that are military have additional military in their family, and so they're all getting exposed. It's changing genetically. Like I said, I did whole genome sequencing, and it showed up in my in my genetics. So, is it something that was my dad's dad, who was also military? We just don't know at this point. But there's also a lot of agents, chemicals, things that our military are exposed to. But it could be also something neurological. And we saw just recently when America went into Venezuela, they said that the people were attacked, and it wasn't a chemical attack that we deployed to subdue the leader there. It was in their military on the other side. It was something else that made them vomit and bleed and have a bad reaction. There's so many other things that could be involved, especially when it comes to government, that we just don't know.
Yeah, a lot of things that won't come out for maybe another century of what has been used and what is there. And of course, the government and the military, especially, aren't ones to throw up their hands and give a mea culpa at any point either.
Right.
I could only imagine what that just comes back to the American taxpayer, that we would be paying for the faults of military officials who made some really poor decisions going back, now almost 200 years,
Right.
right?
Right. A
That we've
win's a
kind of,
win, but
right.
who's winning?
Yeah, well, exactly. It's kind of us who pay for it on both ends, right? Or it is the citizens and the soldiers and the, offspring of said soldiers that are paying for it physically, and then also having to possibly pay for it financially with settlements to these families. And we're obviously not against, our veterans receiving more
Oh,
benefits. I think, working close enough with veterans with Operation Combating Veteran Suicide, that we know we are already not serving that community of people enough after they're done serving our country. And I know that since your accident, and since, I mean, you were nearly bedridden for a decade. Is that correct?
that's correct. Bedridden, wheelchair bound, and searching for answers, searching for what to do, and how to rebuild my life. I lost everything, and went down to food stamps for about 6 months, and really had to pick myself up and build myself back a life. And I saw over 100 medical providers in the first 2 years of developing symptoms. I saw 42 doctors that got it wrong. It's a rare disease. There's 100, or 1 out of 10 people live with rare diseases. There's 10,000 rare diseases. So what is it? Why is it attacking? And how do we get access to care for it? And I had to learn that healthcare in our country is working as designed very poorly, and how to rebuild my life. And that took 7 years, 3 to get a diagnosis, another 4 to find a treatment. But only 5% of rare diseases out of the 10,000 even have a treatment. So it's absolutely something that affects everybody in America and even worldwide. And then when you look at pain diseases, because the burning fire pain that I live with, that's 1 in 3 people live with some kind of chronic pain defined as longer than 6 months in their life. And here I am. This started for me in 2002. And so it's been 24 years of managing pain, finding answers, researching. And then once I was able to become my own best advocate, teaching other people to do the same, my family started a nonprofit back in 2006 because of everything that I went through. And if I had resources, imagine people that didn't know how to research and find the resources that they needed, how much they were struggling. And we talk about, especially with our veterans, the suicides that our veterans go through. I've lost so many friends to suicide because of unrelenting pain, symptoms that don't make sense. They're bizarre to the regular world. And how do you mentally get through that process? So I have found talking about my experience and listening to other people tell their stories, especially our veterans, tell their stories, it really makes a difference to how we can get back into functioning members of society, participating in society, and not wanting to give up, not wanting to commit suicide. I just found out we have a bill running through the Arizona legislature now that is for assisted suicide, like they have in Oregon that passed a few years ago. And I'm out here trying to prevent suicides and talk about the ways to bring people back into society and life and being fully active. And now we're talking about doing assisted suicide. It's really something we need to be pro-life and pro getting people the treatment individualized that they need to move forward in this life for this purpose that they're here on earth to fulfill, instead of wanting to give up early and end it.
Yeah, you talk about a broken system and broken systems that are even contemplating those kind of outcomes, because it's cheaper to just get rid of someone and to help them than to actually, to help them end their lives than to actually help them get better and become a functioning member of society again by helping them control their pain, or to just mind blowing to me the way our world works anymore, Barbie. It's so broken. And you spoke a little bit on the medical system. I'm sure insurance doesn't cover a lot of the treatments because they would be considered experimental, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And we have right to try, both on the state level in many states. And it started here in Arizona, but then back in President Trump's first term, he made right to try a federal right. And we do have better access to treatments, but how do you get them paid for? Insurance companies do not want to pay for most of them. Even in my case, my insurance company, when I went in for infusion therapy, which I fought for our veterans as well, they said, sorry, insurance is not going to cover this. And my family had to do fundraisers for me personally. And then I ended up taking out a medical loan to get the treatment because insurance wasn't going to cover it. And then after the treatment that they said was going to be $18,000, it turned out to be $114,000. And
we were off just a little bit, huh?
Just a little bit off on the calculations. And I had no complications. And it was that big of a parity or disparity in cost from what they told me, what we raised and prepared for. And it was during the housing crash. So I was like, my house isn't even worth $114,000 at the moment. Like, I am never going to be able to pay off this bill. I'm going to pay $5 or $10 a month for the rest of my life. What am I going to do? And I wrote to my insurance company and said, I understand that you're not going to help me pay this bill, which I think you should. But I went into the hospital in a wheelchair and I walked out 7 days later. It looked funny because my legs are atrophied and I like hobbled like a newborn deer down the hall. But but I asked them to help me negotiate the price, even though they wouldn't pay for any of it. Negotiate it down. They should be there to do that for us. And they ended up getting all of my hospital records, seeing how much money they were going to save over their future because I was able to do this treatment. And they ended up negotiating the bill down to $25,000. And my portion of it was $100. And so I was given a refund of $17,900 and donated that to charity to help other people get access to the treatment.
Well,
So
what an incredible, incredible, moment for you to receive that and then to pay that forward to others who are struggling. And it speaks to why you're such a huge advocate now in doing what you're doing, not just assisting in that way and helping others one-to-one, but also in changing laws around that. I know you've had a couple of pieces that you've probably had more bills passed now than some of the legislators that are in office across the board here in the United States now, but tell us a little bit about getting into into the legal field and passing laws. And I know this is quite a story here as well.
yes, so from my bed, um, I had met at physical therapy. I had met a lawyer, and he hired me as a legal assistant. And so I worked for him for 4 years. I redesigned how he puts his cases together for his firm, and learned a little bit about the medical system, how to read state statutes, how to understand law. In 2009, I was asked, when I went into remission, I was asked to testify here in Arizona and share my story down at the Capitol on a step therapy bill, or fail first bill. It's called both. And in doing so, I started getting asked to share more and more. And I ended up working on over 100 bills in 36 states, as well as federally through the years. And I would see the overturning in legislature. And I still would go down and I'd reshare my story. And I had helped get a bill passed in 2021. And in 2022, we had a celebration party, and there was a senator that showed up to this celebration party for the work that we had put in. And throughout the event, she kept talking to my husband. He kept saying, go talk to my wife, go talk to my wife. Finally, she came over and talked to me, and found out that I've published 10 books, just through the journey of how to navigate each different part of the health system that I felt like I had become an expert in. And I mentioned my book. She said she'd like to read it sometime. So I sent her a copy. She ended up ordering 100 books and asking me my opinion. And I said, I have a couple of bills that I would like to present. And she said, okay, let's start with one. I presented it. I had written the bill and my first go around, but it literally was hurry up and write this bill so that I had something to present. I presented it. She loved it. She took it forward, and it was going through pretty well through the legislature. It basically defined what chronic intractable pain was and allows Arizona medical providers to treat the patient in front of them individually. If you have a chronic intractable pain disease of any pain disease, and there's over 160 pain diseases, then you are able to get the care that the provider wants to provide for you. It didn't go back to state statutes that said doctors have to remain within this scope. It allowed them more flexibility and right to try and what patients need. And so I was able to bring that forward. It got passed. And then I brought forward my second idea that I had written, my bill. And she said it was a great bill. It basically provided, we have in all the states except for Missouri, we have PDMPs, prescription drug monitoring programs. And our law enforcement was able to pull us over, see that data in Arizona, and give tickets based on if your doctor had given you a heart medication or a pain medication or a psychological medication, whatever it was you were taking. They could see that information and ticket you as a driving under the influence. And that was happening. And so instead of having a search warrant and protecting our data and information, it was fully open. Doctors were being targeted, patients were being targeted, and took that through. And that was also passed into law within a month's time. The first one took about 3 months. The second one took a month. And it was like, wow, this actually can be helpful to get to deregulate where we need to regulate where we need to give patients better access to care. And she at that time said, you would be a great representative or senator. You should actually run for office. And I said, no, not going to do that. And
why would I do that? I'm having so much success just writing them from here without having to hang out with all you hooligans.
You do the hard part. And it was hard. I'm telling you, to have an idea, research current law, figure out what's right for your state. Every state is different. Every state laws are different. So figuring out what is right for your state, and many of the federal laws, like the Bill of Rights, which I'm a constitutional scholar, the Bill of Rights project, it shows us when you study it, most of the laws are actually done by the states, and the federal government shouldn't be involved in them. So it's been bringing it back down to the state level and figuring out what do we need on this state's level to get the care that we need. And every state has different options. Their healthcare options are different. Their insurance is different. And healthcare isn't necessarily a federal issue. It's a state issue. It comes down to what do the people of that state need and how do we get access to those things. So it helped me fall in love with the behind the scenes of the process and realizing that there's 32 steps to getting a bill passed, and it could die at any one of those steps. How do we overcome that? And then teaching other people how to do the same thing.
Is that the next book? How to write a bill?
Actually, I do teach a legislative course online, and I have people from many different states that have taken the course to learn how to do it for their state. And so it's a general course, but then we, depending on who the makeup of the participants are, I will bring up their state laws and challenges and go through idea of what they want to change in their state. And it might be healthcare related. That's where I fell in love with it, but I could take the system that I have and use it in any area of legislation now.
I think that's so important when you have this groundswell of grassroots political movements happening in our country right now, because it's absolutely necessary. We didn't get to this mess overnight. It has been a systemic, almost bewilderment, I think, with the governing process from the president all the way down to the local, mayor and city council, right? And I think that it's
boards, law enforcement, everybody, it's sheriffs, it all works together when you're doing it right. And it has to come from the people. We, the people of the United States, have to stand up and take action. Just like you have to do in your own healthcare, you have to do that in life. And it's so important to live your best daily life, to get involved and not say, oh no, that's political, I don't want to get involved. That's religious, I don't want to get involved. That's outside of the realm of my safe little bubble. No, we have to be participants and take responsibility for our daily lives to get the things that we need to live our best life.
Yeah, because otherwise somebody else is going to come in there, do it, and take advantage of you, and they're not being an advocate for you whatsoever. It's so important to advocate first for yourself, and then as you learn to do that you can advocate for others. And right. I know that we're going to talk a lot more about that in another interview here shortly, but I'd love for you to share a little bit about now actually pursuing becoming a state legislator in your home state of Arizona.
Well, the senator had asked me to run for office, and I said no. That was back in 2022. And then I went and talked to my older brother is on board of supervisors in Virginia. And I went and talked to him and said, hey, I got asked to do this. And he said, yeah, you're right. It's not time. You'll know when it's time because your local leadership of the party will say, hey, we would like for you to run. We're going to support you. We're bringing you forward. And again, it comes from the people, the grassroots, and bring those efforts forward. And so I said, okay. And I just continued to work on legislation. I've written and co-written 7 bills. I've worked on hundreds of bills. I have 4 now that are law. And I had some wins. And then in 2023, November 11th of 2023, a local representative, I was at a veterans event and for Veterans Day, and the local rep said, hey, have you ever thought about running for office? We're all in support of you doing that. And I said, oh, let me pray about it. Let me think about it. And that was really the catalyst that brought me forward to actually run for office and what to run for and how to run. But really having all the experiences that I had in becoming my own best advocate to make getting better together a reality in my life all stemmed from my personal experience. And that's a lot of times what happens. It's either you or someone needs help and you're trying to find a way to get them help. And you go down this new path in life. And that's what happened for me. And then sharing my journey and my story. And we've really glossed over a lot of the hardships and challenges that I've been through. I was overtreated, undertreated, and mistreated with the healthcare system. But that led me to where I am today to be able to help people get better together. And that's what it's all about.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a great point to kind of cut this portion of the interview off. We're going to talk a lot more about your political campaign on our other network. But Barby, where can everyone find you? Where can they get your books and read more about you and go more in depth into your story and hear more? We like to share the triumphs a lot more on this show. So we didn't want to get into a lot of, the hardships. Yeah. And not that we don't face them, but I think it's so much more important to identify that, yes, I had hardships, but they made me in so many ways the triumphant person that you're seeing in front of you now. And I truly believe that you are. And I mean, you've gotten more bills passed than I think our state legislator, Senator John Thune, who is from South Dakota, is the Senate Majority Leader now. I don't think he's gotten 4 passed in his 25 years of service to our country, period. So you're doing great. There, Barby. So we're going to talk a lot more about your political career on the next segment over on the Patriot Broadcasting Project. But go ahead and plug everywhere where people can find your books and where they can find out more about you personally.
Sure. So I would start with internationalpain.org, an International Pain Foundation. There's a lot of tips, resources, education, webinars, that everything's free. So you can check it out. And that's where I'd go first. If you want to see things about me personally, you can go to barbyingle.com. And my books are available everywhere books are sold. But the easiest place to get them is on Amazon.
Excellent. Well, Barby Ingle, thank you so much for coming on and helping us all get better together.
Thank you.